and I will get started. You should see my title screen. It should say Office 365 User Administration Session 2, and I see that on my screen, so that's good. What we're gonna cover today is we're gonna talk about OneDrive for Business. We're gonna talk about SharePoint, and we're going to talk a little bit about it's now called Skype for Business. It was called Link. I'm going to go to the next screen here. We're Management Concepts. I'm Brian Jones. I do a lot of the back-end setup and a lot of different things. Some of our system support people that you may deal with, Glenn Bell, Jim Larson, and we just hired a new gentleman. His name is John Musadi. So you may be in the near future talking to him a little bit about system type things. My agenda, again, we're going to talk about OneDrive for Business. We're going to talk a little bit about SharePoint. You'll see it referred to as team sites inside of Office 365. And we're going to talk about Skype for Business. And again, it used to be called Link. I mean, Microsoft keeps changing the names of its products here, so it's difficult sometimes to keep up with that. First of all, does anybody have any questions from the last session we did? Last session really dealt with user administration, email administration, kind of installing the product, things like that. If you remember, everything is accessed from the portal.office.com, and we'll go into that again today. Local apps are installed on the PC, and if you've got Office 365, you also get the ability to run mobile apps, and I'll show you some of that stuff again as well. So, are there any questions before I go further? All right, if nobody's talking, that's fine. Then that means there's not. So I'm going to go on to my next slide. I'm going to start with OneDrive for Business. There's a couple things we need to know about it. OneDrive for Business is a personal, and I'll stress that it's a personal file storage area, if you want to think of it, in the cloud that is part of Office 365. And it is included in pretty much all editions of Office 365 except the standalone products. Like you could get, for example, hosted Exchange or hosted SharePoint. That doesn't include OneDrive, but any of the small business plans and any of the enterprise plans include OneDrive. Today, the limit for file storage in OneDrive is 1 terabyte. I know there's been talk about making that unlimited, but right now it's 1 terabyte, which is an awful lot of storage. A couple other limits you should know. It's limited to 20,000 items, which again, that shouldn't be an issue for most of us. It is limited to 2 gigabytes per file. So it's not a great place to store movies or things like that. The files that get over 2 gigabytes, it won't accept files that large. And you're limited to file names of 250 characters in length. So, you know, don't go crazy on naming the files. Also, as far as file names and things like that, be wary of special characters such as pound signs, asterisks, parentheses, that kind of stuff. Typical stuff you would not use in a file name anyway. Don't use those names in OneDrive. It won't accept it. The purpose of OneDrive is to store your personal files. And again, I say the word personal because SharePoint is the other part of this, which is more of a collaboration system. It allows you to store files synchronize them then with your PC or mobile device, and then access them. The idea is you can then access these files anywhere. OneDrive is required for mobile devices. So if you want to access your Word document on your iPad or on your iPhone, you need to have OneDrive, and again, that's part of the reason why it's part of Office 365. Let's see what else we got. SharePoint. Before I go into showing the products, let me just again do a little talking about it. SharePoint, on the other hand, is a collaboration tool, and again, I'll show you both of these, and I'll show you the differences between them. But SharePoint is designed more for a team of people and maybe a specific project where you can all go in and all see the documents and all access the documents and all that kind of stuff. You'll see that in OneDrive, if I, Brian, have a OneDrive account and Mike at my office here has another OneDrive account, I can't necessarily see Mike's OneDrive documents unless he shares them explicitly to me. Where in SharePoint, I can set up a site, put documents in it, and as long as we're all a member of that site, we can all see those documents that are placed out there. Where again in OneDrive, Mike would have to share each individual document, which is just kind of a pain for that type of sharing. SharePoint also allows things such as calendars, surveys, other apps can be plugged into it, and it also allows for a shared email box. So if again I've got a project, an example might be we do a lot of computer system installs. I might have a project, a SharePoint project created for each of those installs, and any documentation or any notes or any messages back and forth, that kind of stuff, that can go on that SharePoint site. And again, like I said, I'll get into that. Link, I don't really have a slide for Link, but we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. Link is the messenger or the communicator in Office 365. It also allows you to do web conferences. I happen to be using GoToMeeting here to do our web conference, but I could use Link as well. The big difference with Link and in a product like a GoToMeeting or a WebEx is GoToMeeting and WebEx include telephone conferencing with them. Office 365's version of Link does not. It only includes Link to, and again, I call it Link. Microsoft calls it, it's now called Skype for Business. So when I call it Link, they're interchangeable there. Skype for Business does not include calling to regular telephones unless you subscribe to additional services. So it's a little more complex there. I still find GoToMeeting is a better kind of just generic webinar software than Link is. But Link is an easy to use communicator between maybe people in the office, or if you've got remote branches, it's a great way to share stuff back and forth without using a telephone, because everybody likes to text and stuff nowadays. So with that said, let me get out of my PowerPoint presentation and let's actually go into the product. I am a little setup here. Again, I'm still using my Windows 10 preview that I was using last time. If I log in, let me log out and log in. If I go to the Office 365 portal, if you remember, it's actually portal, I'll type it in, portal.office.com, brings me to this page, and again, it changes the link to something big and ugly. I log in as my user. In my case, I'm Brian at MCIGB Test is my account. So I log in as that, give it my password. Okay, and I bring up my Office 365 portal. Again, if you remember from last time, this is where we do a lot of the administration stuff, and again, end users. In this case, Brian is an end user. I've got an admin account that's an administrative user. I can go in and do things. Let's go into OneDrive. OneDrive is accessible right from the home screen here. If you don't find it on the home screen, you can always go to the top left corner, click on the little squarey thing, and you will find it in here as well. If I click on it, I open up OneDrive. OneDrive is really, as we go into SharePoint in a little bit, OneDrive is really a subset of SharePoint. Okay, again, SharePoint is Microsoft's web collaboration stuff. OneDrive is, again, a kind of a personal storage for SharePoint. Again, when you would use OneDrive versus SharePoint, OneDrive is designed, again, as a personal storage. Again, I say that word again, personal storage. SharePoint is designed as collaborative storage. I made that word up. OneDrive has limited sharing. It's designed for document review. Maybe I want to share a document with someone else and have them look at it, do changes, things like that. We can collaborate. It's also designed for sharing devices between, or sharing files between devices. Okay, so when I go into my OneDrive in Office 365, I see a few things. I see a shared with everyone folder, and in this case, I must have made an email attachments folder. My shared with everyone folder, anything I put in this folder is available with everyone in my organization. By default, it is not available with anyone outside of my organization. Okay, using OneDrive for business, I can also share documents with people that do not have Office 365. Okay, so I can share with what are called external users. I can share with a Gmail account. I can share with anybody outside my organization if I wanted to. The default shared with everyone folder, and everybody will have one of these folders, only allows sharing inside my organization. So it's not opening a file up to the internet, that kind of thing. To use OneDrive, let's go into that. On my PC here, on my PC here, I've got a folder that has some test files. And again, I should probably change my contrast here, but test file C. To use, if I wanted to put something in OneDrive, I can simply drag it and drop it, and it uploads it to my OneDrive folder. Okay, and see there you see my test C file. If I wanted to edit this in OneDrive, I can click on it, and by default, it opens it up in Word Online. If I want to edit the document, I have now the choice of opening it up in actual Microsoft Word, which has to be loaded on my machine, or I can edit it in the online version of Word. Okay, so I've got two ways to deal with that. If I'm dealing with a tablet device, I open it. It'll open up in the application on the tablet. It'll open up in Word on the tablet, or it'll open up, if I'm doing it through a browser, it'll open up in the online version. Okay. Oops, where did it go? Let's refresh my screen. Okay, so there's my test C file. Again, I could go edit that. I can do whatever I want with that. When I put something out here, it is only shared with myself, and it tells me who last modified it. If I want to change some of that, that is what these little dotty things are for. If I click on the dots, it brings up a quick little example of the document. I can click on that and edit this. Here is the URL or the link to this document. I could paste this in a browser. I could email this to myself, and that's how I can get to it. If I want to share the document, I select Share, and it brings up a list of people I can share this document with. I have to invite these people. So in this case, I've got a user, Sarah, at mcigbtest.onmicrosoft.com. I can choose, okay, and then I pick her, Sarah Johnson. I can choose what Sarah can do, if Sarah can edit the document or if Sarah can only view the document. And I can include a text with this. So I can say, hey, Sarah, take a look at this, okay? And if I click share here, it's going to send an email out to Sarah Johnson with a link to the document that she can go edit. And again, we'll see that in my other window here. Before I do that, a couple other things I can do. I could get a link and share it generically without having to send an email. So if I had a document that I wanted others to be able to view, I could create a link here. It'll create a link. I can copy and paste this into an email, send it to somebody, and here anybody who has this link can now go see this document. Likewise, I can create an edit link. So anyone who has this edit link can see this document. Okay, so it's not, it doesn't require an email. And then it tells me who this document is shared with. In this case, right now, it's only shared with myself. So let's go back to my Sarah Johnson. I'm going to share that. Okay, so now it tells me the document is shared with Sarah Johnson and one more, the one more being myself. And Sarah Johnson would get an email. Let's go over to, let me bring that other screen in here. This, oops, this happens to be Sarah Johnson. If I go into Sarah Johnson, we'll just do this through, mail here. I'm logged in as Sarah Johnson in her Office 365. Oops, and I didn't log in ahead of time, so Central Time, we'll save. I should have an email sitting in her mailbox with a link to that document. And there I do, so if I go open that up, you see my document. Hey, Sarah, take a look at this. And if I want to open it, it's just a link. I can click on it. It fires up right into that document. If Sarah has edit permission, she can go edit it. I'm just editing Word Online because I don't want to have to deal with anything. So I click that, test C. I can go, hi, Brian, this is cool. So I'm editing a document here. Let's move this out of the way. I'm going to go back to the green screen is Brian, the gray screen is Sarah, just to keep that in mind. So we can see it was edited about a minute ago. That was Sarah editing it. If right now Sarah has this document open, okay, I'm back on my green screen, I'm Brian here. I'm going to go into this document as Brian. Okay, I can view it just fine. If I go edit it, I can edit this in Word Online. Notice my change. You see my Sarah change. Hi, Brian. This is cool. This is Brian typing back. You see up in the top right here that Sarah Johnson is also editing. You can literally edit the same document at the same time with two different people. Look at that. You see Brian's stuff showed up there. That's pretty cool. You can do that in the online version of Word. If I were to open this document in Word on my PC, it would give me an error saying that the document is in use by Sarah and it will not let me edit it until Sarah gets out of it. It'll allow me to make a read-only copy of it, but it will not edit it. So, are there any questions or anything so far? I know I'm just kind of flying through and talking here, but are there any questions about that? Okay. Same thing works on a tablet device. Let me flip out there for a second. I'm going to minimize that. Let me find my handy dandy iPad here. I'll put that on the screen over there. If I open up my OneDrive, OneDrive for Business, there you see my my Share with Everyone document, my Share with Everyone folder. Let me go back. You see my Test C folder here. This is the document we're editing in. So I'm going to click on it. And again, same type of thing. I can go in, I can open it up in Word. This happens to be the iPad version. I believe there's an Android version of it as well. I can go open this up in Word, and as we wait for it to open, I can make edits to it. Oops. It's probably going to make me sign in. Or will it automatically know? No, it doesn't know. I'm going to skip this part. But what I can do is if I were to sign in here, it would allow me to edit the documents, make changes to it, and it's no different than, again, Brian or Sarah working on the document, which is very cool, again, because say you have a document that you're doing something on, you save it off to your OneDrive, and you're doing it at your desk, and you go home for the night, and you go, oh man, I really wish I had that document because I need to make a little change to it or something like that. Well, again, that's exactly what OneDrive is for. I can go, again, pull it up on my iPad. I could pull it up on my laptop at home. I can do it in a web browser, so I don't need Microsoft Office. Now, I certainly could have Microsoft Office, but I don't need Microsoft Office, and I can get to it. Let me go back to my OneDrive here and show you a couple other things. So that works with, again, the editing of the documents like that works with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, that kind of stuff. It also works with other applications. The other applications don't necessarily, though, let two people edit the document at the same time. Okay? So again, just a little recap. Right, or click on the little ellipse thing, go to share. That allows me to share it. And again, I could share it with anyone by doing a guest link, and that could be someone outside of my organization. Sarah happens to be inside my organization. That kind of stuff. So that's all there is to it there. The other thing that we can do with OneDrive, right now I'm manipulating things in a web browser. You see me, I logged into the portal and I'm doing stuff through a web browser. If I wanted a folder available on my PC, I have the option to do a sync here. So if I click on sync, what it does is it pops out a screen that says syncing as we speak. Go ahead and show my files. If I click show my files, what it does is it creates a folder on my PC that has my OneDrive stuff, and it synchronizes things. Let me minimize this in the back. It synchronizes things back to my OneDrive. So if I go to my admin folder here, I'm going to see a OneDrive for management concepts. Now, again, Microsoft in their infinite wisdom has two versions of OneDrive. They've got a free consumer version, which has like 2 or 3 or 5 gigabytes of storage or something like that, and doesn't integrate with Office 365. So you'll see that one here. That's confusing. And then they've got a OneDrive for Business, which is the stuff that integrates with Office 365. They should have called it different things, but they didn't. So what I can do here is if I have my OneDrive, I'm going to pin this to my quick access so it shows up there. So now if I go into, let's go into Microsoft Word. This is, again, the Windows 10 interface. So I'm going to go All Apps. I'm going to go Microsoft Office 2013. Where are you? Yeah, good job, Brian. Why isn't my Word showing up in there? I broke it. I'm going to just double click on it, see what happens. Okay. Inside of Word, again, I've got a test file here. If I go File, Save As, I now have the option here. Once I connect my OneDrive to my PC, you see my OneDrive at Management Concepts Test. That's my site. My OneDrive, my personal OneDrive is OneDrive, and I actually have a SharePoint connection to it as well, which shows up here as SharePoint. But I could go browse that. I am going to give this a different name. Brian's demo, we'll call it, and we'll do a save. Okay, that saves it on my PC here. You see Brian's demo showed up. But if I also go out to the web stuff, because these files are synchronized, I may have to do a refresh on the screen to see it. But you see Brian's demo shows up here on the website as well. So now I'd be available, I'd be able to use this file on the internet. So any file essentially that I've got, I've got a folder here again of test files. If I had my test A, test B, and test C, anything I put in this OneDrive folder gets automatically synchronized. And again, I got to do a refresh here. Gets automatically synchronized to my OneDrive account, which is again available then on any device. Okay. A little bit about the. Are there any questions before I just keep rambling on? Okay, I will continue talking. A little bit about the shared for everyone folder, or shared with everyone folder. If I go in the shared with everyone folder, here are some files. File B, MCI test, and shared with everyone doc. Okay. As I said, by default, these files are automatically shared with people inside your Office 365 environment, inside your system. They are not shared externally. Okay. However, the catch to that is, let me go to my Sarah. This is my Sarah account, and I'm going to go back to her OneDrive. If I go back to her OneDrive, notice she's got different files. If I go to shared with everyone, notice just because I put it in shared with everyone, it does not show up on everyone's shared with everyone. In Microsoft's wisdom, what they're doing here is they're making us do a search to find the document, or the user needs to have the link to get to the document. So let me go back to my, let me get my iPad off of here. That's confusing. Let me go back to my other screen. So I've got a MCI test document, for example. Let's go find that. Let's see if we can find that. Back to Sarah. Again, Sarah, keep in mind Sarah's the gray screen. Sorry for flipping between screens like this. Let's go search everything. There it is. I have to do a search everything, otherwise it searches my stuff. And here is the MCI test document. If I just hover over the link, notice it is in Brian's Sharepoint. I can't stay there, but right under the HTTPS, you see Brian_MCI GB test on Microsoft.com. It's in Brian's personal storage. So because it's shared, I can go open it and I could go do stuff with it, but I cannot, it doesn't automatically show up, which is kind of, I think that's confusing. But the theory is there could be hundreds of thousands of documents in there, and it would be very difficult to find anything if they let everybody's documents show up. So again, keep in mind, just because it's shared with everyone does not mean it shows up to everyone unless you send, again, you can search for it, or you can do the links. You can send a share, follow. You can follow the document as well, which means you'll get updates if the document is edited, which is again kind of cool stuff. So let's talk a little bit about how OneDrive does things. OneDrive is not really designed to be a backup system. If you stop your subscription to Office 365, you obviously won't have access to the documents once you stop paying for it. So that can be a problem. There is a recycle bin and there is versioning in the files. So if I right click on it or click on it, I also have the option for a version history here. Let's check that out for a second. Oh, that's not a good example. Let's go find, let's go back to Brian. I'm sorry, I'm in Sarah. Let's go back to Brian. Brian's green. Go back a directory. And again, confusing as to how I get back a directory. If I go to my test C was the file I was editing. If I right click on it, go version history. You see I've got two different versions of the file. OneDrive will essentially keep unlimited version histories of files, which are neat if, again, you care about, hey, I made a change to a file. Oh, what did I do yesterday with the file? I don't remember, or I need to go back. I can select a version history. I can view it. I can restore it, that kind of thing. So it keeps version histories. It also, if I right click on it and delete it, it also has a recycle bin. I'm going to find it. Recycle bin. There it is. There's my OneDrive recycle bin. The recycle bin will hold documents for 90 days. Okay. So when I delete things, it's actually stored in a recycle bin. Okay. Then, if I delete things out of the recycle bin, there's actually what's called a second stage recycle bin, where it stays for essentially another 90 days. And then the second stage recycle bin, administrators typically can only restore stuff from. Okay, so that's how that all works. It doesn't. The system really doesn't do backups per se. It just keeps versions. And again, things that you delete go into recycle bin, and then they go into a secondary recycle bin. And then after that point in time, once the 90 days times 2 expires, the document is basically gone. Okay. Any questions? Can everybody hear me? Just confirming, because I don't hear any voices anywhere. Okay, there's Shar.
Yes.
Good. Good. No, nobody's talking, so I just want to make sure I'm not talking to just myself. Okay, so that's the recycle bin. That's let me go back to OneDrive. Again, like I said, it's really designed as a personal sharing system. Okay. My next topic is SharePoint. SharePoint, if I go up here, let me go to SharePoint, is accessed through the Sites area. Click on Sites. SharePoint is, again, designed to be a collaboration tool where you can create projects or create sites for different purposes. The original releases of Office 365 actually lets you create a SharePoint site that could be an external facing website, so it could be your website. They changed that about a year ago where they don't offer an external facing website. What that means is you've got to log into the site to be able to see this stuff, where, again, a typical website you just go to on the internet and stuff pops up on the screen. The SharePoint sites, or the Microsoft Office 365 SharePoint sites, make you log into them. Okay, you can have both external and internal users access your SharePoint site. Okay, so you can share stuff with customers, vendors, whatever it may be, if needed. Okay, so couple limitations to the SharePoint site. SharePoint gives you 500 megabytes per user, plus a 10 gig base. Okay, so each user in Office 365 you have increases the number or the storage limit by 500 meg in addition to the 10 gig base. So it starts out with 10 gig. So if I have 2 users, it adds another, 2 times 500, so it adds another gig. So I would have 6. I would have 11 gig total with a 2-user system. Okay. Remember what I said about OneDrive. OneDrive has 1 terabyte. 1 terabyte is 1,000 gigabytes. So there's a lot more storage space in OneDrive than there is for SharePoint. However, again, 10 gig is still huge. Additional storage you could purchase if you needed it, but we haven't gotten customers that have gone that far. All right, I'm going to click on my default team site. When you log into Office 365, you're going to see there's a default team site. If I'm an administrator, I can click on New, and I can create additional sites as well. And I've created one called Brian's site. I'll show you that in a few minutes. But let me go into the default team site. I'm going to click on that. Now, the team site is going to be the same for all of the users. You know, whatever I put on this team site is going to show up for all of the additional users. Okay. Some of the things I can do with the team site. When you first pop into it, it gives you some things where you can share your site. You can create task timelines and calendars. You can add lists and libraries, libraries being document libraries. You can change the way it looks. So if you don't like the the Microsoft white, this is basically the defaults right now. You can put your logo on it. You could actually make an email account for it. That kind of stuff. Typical stuff you would do with a SharePoint site would be you might have a news feed where different people can go in and make different comments. You know, and I can post pictures, I can post or I can post words to it. So Brian could go in, Sarah could go in and make her comment or whatever. Okay, so that's what a news feed does. Documents. I can upload documents to this. It works essentially the same way that that OneDrive does, and I can share these documents, and I can actually share this site with people where I have access to it directly from things like Microsoft Word. So if you recall, if I went into Word and I did a file, save as, I actually have my Management Concepts test site here. So if I want to save this in my Management Concepts test site, save my Brian demo file, oops, I got to put it somewhere. So I put in the documents and save it there. Go back to my SharePoint site, and again, refresh, we think. You see Brian's demo file showed up in there. Again, it works the same way as OneDrive as far as editing the documents, the document versioning, all of that kind of stuff. I click on the ellipses, and I basically have the same thing I saw in OneDrive. So again, but the difference though is that all of these files are now visible to anybody who has this site shared. Or if you recall in OneDrive, if I put stuff in the shared with everyone folder, it doesn't show up in anybody else's stuff. You have to go figure out where it is. Okay, so that's document sharing, and you can have multiple document libraries in a site. Well, let me show you a calendar. If I click on the calendar, and I've already got a calendar, let's see. To edit the site, I click Edit up on the top. I'm going to go add a calendar to this. So if I wanted to change any of the text or any of the way any of the words look, it now becomes almost like a Microsoft Word. It's a web page editor thing. You can get very complex in this stuff if you were to really get into it. I want to go insert a calendar though, so I'm going to insert what's called a web parts. I want to put a calendar in there, and these are the web parts I've got added. If it didn't show up in here, I can go to app part. There's a bunch of things you can download and get that are apps. Click a calendar, click add, and there it shows up as a calendar. Now, if I don't like my calendar there, I'm going to go to my calendar. I want to show as a monthly calendar, though. there is my calendar, and if I want to connect that calendar to Microsoft Outlook, I can synchronize this calendar to Outlook so it actually shows up in my Outlook. So whatever I put on my Outlook shows up in this calendar. And I can put, let's do something here. Let's put something, let's add a little appointment here, my meeting or whatever. And again, we'll just put stuff in here, I'll save it. And of course that didn't show up very well in there. It doesn't show me that I've got one. Save the calendar. It didn't save my settings. Yeah, that was nice. Getting back to my calendar here. Calendar. Month view. Somewhere is a save that I'm missing. Again, it's a web design thing, so you have to have patience with it. Saving. It still flipped it back. Not exactly sure what I'm doing there. But I can also tie it into people's calendars by adding people to it. So this is looking at Brian Jones. I could add Sarah Johnson, that kind of stuff. And if there were stuff on her calendar, it could sync back into here. Again, with playing with it, with the design, I can make it a calendar, look like a monthly calendar. It could be good for a company schedule, a vacation schedule, things like that. That's a good thing that could go on a team site. Let's see. Left side of the screen here are just quick links to get to, oops, and I didn't want to open OneNote. I don't want to talk about OneNote right now. Leave this page. And my calendars, my site content. And again, different views of the site. And if I go home, it's home. Okay. Again, SharePoint can be a complex thing. Simple things to use it for, again, are documents, maybe news feeds and calendars. And again, it can do a whole lot more. When we're done with this this webinar, what I'll do is I'm going to send a link to a Microsoft training course. Well, it's not a training course. It's a kind of a how-to thing on OneDrive, and I'll send one on SharePoint as well, so it shows again some more of the features. I don't really have a whole lot of time here to go into a bunch of the pieces and parts, but SharePoint can do again a lot of things. Let me go back to the site. Let me show you my Brian site. This is one that I just played with a little bit, just to show you some of the different looks and feels. You notice it looks, the colors are completely different, the backgrounds are different. I did leave the home stuff up there. If I didn't want to see the home stuff, I can make that go away. I could add, you know, there's a site calendar for it. Here is that site's calendar. The site also has an email box associated with it. So if I were to email to the address that it creates here, stuff would show up centrally on this site. Likewise, I do also have a mailbox for the site, which I clicked on mailbox there. It is firing into the Outlook for the Brian site mailbox. So again, it's a shared, think of it as a shared mailbox where, again, anybody who has access to that site can go see stuff in that mailbox. And I go back to Brian's site there, and it pops back to my site. So that kind of in a nutshell is a real high level overview of SharePoint. Again, SharePoint can get pretty deep because there's lots you can do with it, or it can be simple. You know, again, simple things are the documents, probably the document area and the newsfeed area. Questions? Before I go into link. Okay. I'm going to close out of that. All right. Let's talk for a second about Link, or again, they call it Skype for Business. Again, if I go into my, my portal, Question? If I go into my portal, Skype is actually part of, if you remember from last time, if you click the gear in the top right, click Office Settings, Install Software. Skype is actually a thing that you can download here and install on your PC. There's also a Skype client for iPhones. There's a Skype client for Android, all that kind of stuff. So you can actually access it outside of your PC. But Skype then, once it's installed, this is what it looks like. It is essentially a messenger communication app. I can, in this case, I'm Brian Jones. I've got Sarah Johnson added here. If I wanted to communicate with Sarah, I see she's been away from her desk for 15 minutes. Well, if I go back to Sarah here, that's Brian. If I go back to Sarah here, I'm going to Sarah's Skype. And keep in mind, again, in Microsoft's infinite wisdom, they also have a thing called Skype, which is different than Skype for Business. I want to go into Microsoft Office 2013 and Skype for Business. So I'm going in, I'm logged in as Sarah. I went to Sarah. There I see Brian is available. Okay, now if I were to go back to Brian, you see that Sarah no longer said she was away for 15 minutes. If I want to communicate with Sarah, I see she's green, so I can double click on her and it pops up a messenger. I can say, hi Sarah, do you have time to chat? You know, again, just simple chatty type stuff. And what happens is, if I go back to Sarah, you see a message pops up here from Brian Jones. I can accept it, I can ignore it, I can whatever. If I accept it, now we're basically doing a chat back and forth. Okay, some other things I can do with this is I can do a video call. So if I've got a camera, most laptops and stuff nowadays have cameras, iPads have cameras, that kind of stuff. I can actually do a video conference back and forth right now. I click, again, I don't in my virtual environment here have a camera set up. Oops, my Outlook broke. I could do a voice call. Now, Skype for Business will do a voice call using, again, the Skype stuff. So the other user has to have Skype. If I want to integrate it with phone system and go outside my organization, there's more to be done. I can also share my screen. So I could do a presentation much like I'm doing this GoToMeeting presentation. I could share my screen and say, hey Sarah, do you have time to look at this? And I could share my whole screen or a piece of my screen. I can also send files and other things. And again, you can record, you can set personal preferences, screen layouts, all that kind of good stuff. The other thing, and again, I'm going back to Brian here, the other thing Skype for Business can be good for is it can be good for corporate meeting type things. So say I want to hold, again, a webinar or something like that. I could let me go do a calendar. I'm back in my Outlook here. If I've got Skype loaded on my system, I can create actually a Skype meeting, a Skype for Business meeting. And it sends out, much like I did for the GoToMeeting here, it'll send out an invite to people, and you can host basically a web conference. You know, and again, this is all part of Office 365. So I can host a web conference. Again, the limitation with Skype for the web conference is that they have to connect to you via Skype to talk. Okay, so that means they have to have a computer that's got a headset or speakers or something to talk or listen with you. Usually that's not a big deal as far as listening goes, it can be a big deal if you want two-way communication. So again, that's kind of a bummer there. Let's see. And again, you could do video conferences, that kind of stuff as well through Skype. We use it internally to communicate with some of our customers. We also use it internally to communicate amongst ourselves because, you know, the world is used to text messaging everybody. So it can be a quick way of doing that kind of stuff. And again, meetings and phone, it says phone, but there's nothing I can call on the phone. I can also connect external people with Skype for Business too. If an example would be Brian T. Jones here is my Skype account on my PC, or Brian Jones is my test account, so I can talk across organizations if I allow that to happen. You know, again, good for collaboration if you work with multiple businesses and that kind of stuff, and people are into this kind of thing. So that's all I really have then for today, and we're coming up on our 11 o'clock hour here. Are there questions or other things that that you'd like me to show either today or stuff that you might like me to go into deeper, maybe for another session or something like that? Don't all speak at once. Any questions?
Brian, one question.
Yep.
If you already had Skype on your computer, plain old Skype,
yep.
Can you remove that, uninstall it, get rid of it, and then use business Skype? I mean, if you have them both at the same time.
You can have them both at the same time, and that's what's confusing about the Microsoft stuff. Is same with OneDrive and OneDrive for Business. You can have them both at the same time, but they don't necessarily communicate with each other. The Skype stuff that's not part of Office 365 doesn't necessarily do all of the same screen sharing and stuff that the Skype for Business stuff does. So it's a little different, but they're called the same thing, so it's getting confusing. So no, you don't have to remove one to use the other, but they aren't necessarily interchangeable either. At least.
But is Skype for Business Office 365?
Skype for Business is Office 365. That's correct.
So they have to have Office 365 to use that Skype, but the other
they would have that's correct. They would have to have Office 365 to use that Skype, except if you're doing like a web conference. You know, again, I can do like I'm doing today with my GoToMeeting. I could have done this in Skype for Business, but I do think I do think GoToMeeting is a better webinar tool. So, hope that answers it. Maybe not.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Ben, Aaron, Mike, Roy, anybody? Okay. Well, what I will do is, like I said, I will put together an email with a recording of this presentation, and I will send it out to you. I will also send you a few links with some more information on using OneDrive. Again, there's a fairly straightforward, simple, you know, how a customer uses OneDrive or how an end user uses OneDrive for Business. I'll also send some stuff out on SharePoint as well with some more examples of how it can be used, and there is a ton of information out there. That is one thing that Microsoft is good at. There is a ton of information out there, training material, learning stuff. You can Google just about any problem or thing you have, and Google will tell you as well. So, all right. Thanks for attending, and again, if you have questions, reply to my email, and try my best to answer them. All right.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, everyone.